Hi everyone, welcome to the session. In this session, I am going to focus my discussion on cost behavior patterns of variable cost and fixed cost in relation to total cost and unit cost. So in this regard, I have taken an example. As you can see from this table, you are given different activity levels and cost elements are also given. So variable cost, fixed cost and the total cost elements are given, and its cost behavior depending on the activity level are also given. Now let's try to understand the information given in this table. Then thereafter we'll try to plot this graph based on this information. Now first of all, if you take the total variable cost and the variable cost per unit, to produce one chair, the total variable cost will be 3, however the total cost per unit will be 3. To produce 10 chairs, still the cost per unit will be 3, however the total variable cost will be $30. So when you multiply 3 times 10 will be 30. So when you produce 50 chairs, the total variable cost will be 150. However, the cost per unit will be it will be 3. So as you can see, the total variable cost per unit, regardless of the increase in activity level, it is constant. It doesn't change. However, the total variable cost will increase depending on the activity level. So the total variable cost increases as the volume increases. So when it comes to total fixed cost, the total fixed cost, regardless of the changes in the activity level, the total cost will be fixed. However, the fixed cost per unit, it will reduce based on the increase in activity levels. So if you take in this activity level, it is only one chair, therefore the fixed cost per unit will be still $3,000. However, if you take 10 chairs, this entire 3,000 will be allocated amongst these 10 chairs. So as a result of that, the fixed cost per unit will be 300. And when you take 50 chairs, this 3,000 will be allocated among 50 chairs. So therefore fixed cost per unit will be 60. So basically, as the activity level increases, the fixed cost per unit will reduce. Now when you take the total cost comprises of fixed and variable cost. So when you take the total variable cost and the total fixed cost, it will be 3,003. At 10 activity level, it will be 3,030. At 50 activity level, it will be 3,000 plus 150, 3,150. However, the total cost per unit will be 3,003, and in this case it is 303, because this 3,030 will be allocated among 10 chairs. However, the total cost per unit will be 63 at 50 activity level, because this entire 3,150 will be allocated among 50. So these are the cost behavior patterns of all these cost elements. Now let's try to plot this information into this graph. First of all, we'll try to plot the total variable cost based on the information. So as you can see, the total the units will be, activity level will be 1 chair, 10 chairs and 50 chairs. So 1, 10 and 50 units. And on the vertical axis you have the cost 3, 30, 150. So as the quantity, as the unit increases, the total cost will increase. So therefore, when you plot this, the graph will look like this. It's a linear upward curve. So it will look like this. So this is the total variable cost curve. Now when you take the variable cost per unit, so variable cost per unit, regardless of the activity level, it will be constant. It is 3. It will not change. So therefore it will be a straight line parallel to the activity level. The cost per unit is 3, whether you produce 1 unit, 10 unit or 50 units, it's going to be the same. So therefore it's a straight line parallel to the unit or the activity line. Now when you take the total fixed cost, the total fixed cost is constant regardless of the changes in the activity. So therefore even this line is straight line parallel to the activity level. So whether you produce 1 unit, 10 unit or 50 units, still your fixed cost is going to be same. So therefore there is no change. So therefore it's a straight line parallel to the unit line. When you take the fixed cost per unit, so fixed cost per unit reduces as the activity level increases. Okay, so when the activity level increases, the cost per unit reduces, because the total fixed cost is allocated among these units. As a result of that, the cost will reduce. So when you plot this, so when you produce 1 unit, your fixed cost per unit is 3000. So when you produce 10 units, it's going to be how much? 300. And when you produce 50 units, it will be 60. So therefore it is like downward sloping curve. So this is how your fixed cost per unit graph will look like. So finally let's move on to the total cost curve. The total cost curve, when you produce 1 unit, it's going to be 3003, and 10 units 3030, and 50 units 3150. So if you plot this graph, it will look like this. So it will be like upward sloping curve. Okay, so this is the total cost curve. Then the total cost per unit. The total cost per unit is also similar to fixed cost per unit. It will be a downward sloping curve because the total cost is allocated among the number of units produced. So therefore the total cost will be allocated among number of units produced. The cost will reduce. So as you can see, when you produce 1 unit, it's going to be 3003. However, when you produce 10 units, the entire cost is allocated. So therefore cost per unit is 303, and 50 units it's going to be 63. So therefore it's going to be downward sloping curve. So this is how the graph will look like for the total cost per unit.